May 1967, Washington, D.C. The House Armed Services Committee chamber fills with staff, witnesses, and journalists. Representative Richard Icord arranges papers at the head table. On display tables sit M16 rifles, ammunition samples, and photographs of damaged cartridge cases. In manila folders lie letters from Marines and soldiers in Vietnam, letters that contradict official assurances about the new rifle. Commanders had expected the lightweight M16 to revolutionize infantry combat in the jungle. Instead, reports describe rifles jamming in firefights, stuck cartridges, and soldiers found dead beside weapons they were trying to clear. The hearing room grows quiet as Icord gavels the session to order. Outside, more M16s continue shipping to Vietnam. Inside, Congress prepares to examine how a promising design became a battlefield liability and why the truth took so long to surface. This is the story that begins years before in test ranges and ordnance offices. In 1957, an ordnance officer at Springfield Armory in Massachusetts reviewed Korean War analyses on his desk. The reports examined engagement ranges and hit probabilities from thousands of infantry firefights. A test M14 rifle leaned against the wall, 7.62 millimeters, 9.5 pounds loaded, the presumed future standard. On the workbench sat something different, an Armalite prototype, barely 6 pounds, chambered for a small caliber, high-velocity cartridge. The M14 represented conventional thinking. Derived from the M1 Garand, it combined the stopping power of a full-size rifle cartridge with semi-automatic fire. The Army expected it would serve for decades. NATO had standardized the 7.62 QNI 51mm round. American production lines were ready. The M14 seemed inevitable, but data suggested otherwise. Studies from Korea showed most infantry engagements occurred inside 300 meters. Soldiers rarely used their rifles' maximum range. What mattered was hitting the target under stress, carrying enough ammunition, and controlling automatic fire. The M14 on full automatic climbed uncontrollably. Its heavy cartridge limited how many rounds a soldier could carry. Eugene Stoner's AR-15 answered different questions. It used direct gas impingement, no piston, fewer moving parts. The 5.56 45mm cartridge weighed less than half what 7.62mm weighed. A soldier could carry twice the ammunition. The rifle's straight-line stock and light recoil made automatic fire controllable. 20-round magazines fit compactly. At 6.5 pounds, it reduced fatigue. Test reports appeared on Pentagon desks. Comparative trials showed AR-15 shooters achieved higher hit rates than M14 shooters, particularly in automatic fire. Accuracy at jungle ranges proved superior, the Air Force noticed. General Curtis LeMay ordered AR-15s for base security. Positive field feedback from Air Force users created momentum. Army Materiel Command faced a decision. The M14 represented institutional investment and NATO compatibility. The AR-15 represented higher performance in the likely combat environment. Test data favored the smaller caliber. Practical experience in Vietnam's early years suggested lightweight rifles suited the terrain. Political pressure and inter-service rivalry complicated the picture. By 1963, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara directed procurement of the rifle, now designated XM16E1, before comprehensive long-duration tropical testing. Springfield Armory protested. The Army accepted the decision reluctantly. Orders went to Colt, which had purchased AR-15 rights from Armalite. Production began while questions remained unanswered. How would the rifle perform after months in humid jungle? Would it maintain reliability through extended operations without extensive maintenance? What would happen if ammunition specifications changed? The tests that might have revealed these issues did not occur. Tens of thousands of rifles entered the supply system. In 1964, a staff conference convened in a Washington ordnance office. On one wall hung production schedules for DuPont's IMR extruded powder. On the opposite wall, Olin Matheson's ball powder capacity projections. The rifle remained unchanged. The propellant did not. Stoner had designed the AR-15 around IMR-type extruded powder. This propellant generated a specific pressure curve. Gas port pressure reached calculated levels. The operating system cycled at intended speeds. Fouling accumulated at predictable rates. The entire rifle ammunition combination had been tested and qualified as an integrated system. Ball powder offered production advantages. Olin could manufacture it in larger quantities. Unit costs were lower. The spherical granules metered consistently. For artillery and machine gun ammunition, ball powder worked well. The Army wanted one propellant type to simplify logistics, but rifle operating systems are sensitive to pressure curves. Extruded powder burns progressively, ball powder burns differently. Peak pressures occur at different points. Dwell time in the barrel changes. Gas port pressure, critical for the M16's direct impingement system, increases. Higher port pressure means faster bolt carrier velocity. Faster cycling increases rate of fire. Faster cycling gives less time for cases to cool and separate from the chamber. Higher temperatures and pressures create more fouling. Fouling adheres harder to barrel surfaces. These differences were understood in principle. What was not fully tested was their cumulative effect in tropical humidity, with extended firing, in rifles without chrome-plated chambers, when cleaning equipment was inadequate. The substitution occurred primarily on production schedules and procurement documents. The rifle's technical data package assumed IMR powder. The ammunition now being loaded used WC-846 ball powder. Army Material Command approved the change based on laboratory results showing equivalent muzzle velocities and acceptable pressures. Field endurance testing with ball powder in M16s under realistic combat conditions did not occur at scale. The assumption held that ammunition meeting velocity specifications would function interchangeably. Eugene Stoner later testified he was not consulted about the propellant change. Colt engineers raised concerns about cyclic rate increases but were told the Army accepted the performance. Ordnance officials noted ball powder was within specification tolerances. The decision aligned with industrial capacity and cost priorities. By late 1964, ammunition contracts specified ball powder. Production lines loaded millions of rounds. The cartridges looked identical to those used in testing. Their internal ballistics were not. The first large shipments to Vietnam contained this altered ammunition. Units receiving M16s assumed they were getting the weapon system that had performed well in tests. They were not. They had a rifle designed for one propellant, firing a different propellant, about to enter conditions neither combination had been thoroughly evaluated under. March 1965, Saigon, a logistics NCO pried open crate stenciled rifle 5.56 mm XM16E1 in a depot near Tan Son Nhut Air Base. Rifles emerged wrapped in protective paper and cosmoline. Ammunition pallets stacked nearby, cleaning equipment crates were conspicuously fewer in number. The 173rd Airborne Brigade received M16s in May 1965, the first major Army unit so equipped. The 1st Cavalry Division fielded them upon arrival in September. The rifles promised advantages: lightweight for airmobile operations, high firepower for jungle combat, ease of handling in dense terrain. Official literature emphasized low maintenance and corrosion resistance compared to previous rifles. The phrase self-cleaning appeared in some early promotional material, though not in technical manuals. Reality diverged from promise in practical details. Many rifles lacked dedicated cleaning kits. Cleaning rods were in short supply. Chamber brushes and bore brushes arrived late or not at all. Proper rifle bore cleaner was unavailable. Soldiers used whatever solvents they could find. Instruction specific to the M16 was minimal. Troops received brief familiarization, often just a few hours, before operations. More critically, early production rifles lacked chrome-plated chambers and barrels. Chrome plating reduces friction, resists corrosion, and makes fouling easier to remove. The Army had accepted initial rifles without chrome plating to accelerate fielding. In the humid, corrosive environment of Vietnam, this mattered. Steel chambers exposed to tropical moisture began showing corrosion within weeks. Micro-pitting in chambers increased extraction friction. Soldiers noted rust appearing inside bores after limited exposure. The combination created a latent problem. Ball powder increased fouling and cyclic rate. Non-chrome chambers corroded and increased case adhesion. Lack of cleaning equipment meant soldiers could not maintain bores and chambers adequately, even if they understood the necessity. Official messaging emphasized the rifle's advanced design and reduced maintenance needs. Units in the field assumed that message was accurate. Commanders at USRV headquarters in Saigon tracked supply requisitions. The shortage of cleaning materials appeared in logistics reports. Procurement officers worked to fill gaps, but the supply system moved slowly. Meanwhile, combat operations intensified. Units carrying M16s entered firefights with incomplete support systems. By late 1965, scattered reports mentioned rifle stoppages. Battalion operations officers noted failure to extract, appearing in after-action summaries. These incidents were initially treated as isolated malfunctions, attributed to unfamiliarity with a new weapon or individual weapon defects. Higher headquarters did not yet recognize a pattern. The rifles continued to arrive. The problems were about to become impossible to ignore. At Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, a technician examined test barrels after endurance firing with WC-846 ball powder. Carbon fouling coated the bore. The bolt carrier showed heavy deposits on the gas key and tail. Cyclic rate measurements exceeded design specifications by 50 to 70 rounds per minute. In Vietnam, a soldier in a firebase perimeter wiped rust from his rifle's chamber using a toothbrush and motor oil, the only materials available. The M16's operating system was elegant but sensitive. High-pressure gas tapped from the barrel traveled through a tube directly into the bolt carrier. This gas drove the carrier rearward, rotating and extracting the bolt. The system had no piston. Gas entered the receiver itself. This direct impingement reduced weight and parts count but deposited combustion residue directly into the action. With ball powder, port pressure ran higher than with IMR powder. Higher pressure meant faster bolt velocity and increased cyclic rate. The rifle fired 150 to 200 rounds per minute on automatic instead of the designed 120 to 150. Faster cycling gave fired cases less time to cool and contract before extraction. Hotter cases stuck more firmly to chamber walls. Cases extracted under higher stress. Simultaneously, ball powder generated more residue. The fouling was not only heavier, but stickier and harder. It accumulated in the chamber, on the bolt face, in the locking lugs, and throughout the gas system. As deposits built up, friction increased, extraction required more force. The extractor, a small spring-loaded hook on the bolt, had to work harder. In Vietnam's heat and humidity, corrosion accelerated the problem. Non-chrome chambers developed micro-pitting, moisture and powder residue, combined to create corrosive compounds. Even if a soldier cleaned his rifle at night, by the next afternoon, moisture condensation inside the chamber could restart corrosion. The pits acted like microscopic anchors, increasing the adhesion of fired cartridge cases. The dominant malfunction became failure to extract. The bolt carrier cycled rearward. The extractor gripped the cartridge rim. The case remained stuck in the chamber. Either the extractor tore through the rim, leaving the case behind, or the rim separated entirely from the case body. In both scenarios, the rifle was now out of action. Clearing a stuck case required a cleaning rod inserted from the muzzle to drive the case out from behind. Without a rod, the rifle was deadlined. Technical reports from USRV ordnance staff began documenting the phenomenon. The problem was systemic, not random. It connected directly to ammunition, chamber finish, and maintenance support. An ordnance officer wrote in a report to Army Materiel Command, "The preponderance of malfunctions are extraction failures directly attributable to ammunition and lack of chrome plating in chambers and bores, exacerbated by inadequate maintenance equipment and instruction." The weapons had not changed. The conditions revealed what had always been true. The M16 system, as fielded in Vietnam, was not the M16 system that had been tested and approved. At USRV headquarters in Saigon, staff officers compiled weekly reports from subordinate commands. Across desks moved summaries from battalions in I Corps, Tube Corps, the Central Highlands. A pattern emerged in the text. Operations officers underlined sentences: multiple M16 malfunctions during contact, extraction failures reduced effective firepower, request additional cleaning equipment and maintenance support. Official test data had projected malfunction rates of fewer than 2 per 1,000 rounds under controlled conditions. Field reports suggested something different. Some units reported malfunction rates 10 to 20 times higher during combat operations. The discrepancy demanded explanation. After-action reports provided detail. A rifle company in Binh Dinh province engaged a Viet Cong unit at close range. 9 M16s jammed within the first magazine, 7 from extraction failures. A platoon in Quang Ngai province took contact while moving through a village. 4 rifles malfunctioned simultaneously. The platoon leader's after-action summary noted, soldiers resorted to M79 grenade launchers and M60 machine guns for primary fire. M16s were not considered reliable for initial contact. The pattern varied by unit. Companies with aggressive maintenance programs and better access to cleaning supplies reported fewer problems. Units in remote fire bases or on extended operations, without regular resupply of maintenance items, reported higher rates. Infantry battalions that had managed to obtain extra cleaning rods and brushes through scrounging or private purchase fared better than those relying solely on issued equipment. Marine units faced similar issues. Marine Corps Ordnance reports from 1966 documented extraction failures as the predominant malfunction. One Marine battalion executive officer reported that during a firefight near Da Nang, nearly half the M16s in 2 platoons became inoperative within minutes of contact due to stuck cases. Marines developed techniques for clearing jams under fire, but those techniques required tools not always present. The reports flowed upward through the chain of command. Battalion S3 officers forwarded summaries to brigade. Brigade operations sections consolidated reports for division headquarters. USRV G3 compiled theater-wide data. The numbers accumulated. Hundreds of incidents, thousands of individual weapon stoppages recurring across units, terrain, and tactical situations. Army Materiel Command received the reports in Washington. Ordnance staff attempted to interpret the data. Were the malfunctions due to inadequate training, improper maintenance, manufacturing defects in specific production lots, environmental factors unique to Vietnam? Or was there something fundamentally wrong with the rifle system as fielded? Investigators noted that the highest malfunction rates appeared in units using non-chrome rifles and ball powder ammunition with the least maintenance support. The problem was not evenly distributed, it was concentrated where system vulnerabilities overlapped. This suggested systemic causes, not random defects. By mid-1966, internal Army analyses acknowledged serious reliability issues. The question was no longer whether the M16 had problems, but why those problems had not been predicted and prevented. The rifle had passed tests. It had been approved. Yet in combat, it was failing at rates that endangered soldiers' lives. The reports stayed within military channels. Classified or restricted distribution kept them from public view. Congress did not yet know. The press did not yet know, but in Vietnam, every infantry lieutenant and rifle platoon sergeant knew. They lived with the consequences every patrol. Early 1967. A newspaper editor in Washington opened mail forwarded from a reader. Inside was a letter from a Marine in Vietnam, addressed to his family, then sent to the editor by his mother. The editor read, "Our M16s are jamming. In our last firefight, 5 rifles in my platoon stopped working. We don't have cleaning rods. We're picking up AK-47s from dead VC because they work better." The letter contradicted every official statement about the rifle. Soldiers and Marines had been writing home for months. Personal correspondence described recurring malfunctions, frustration with equipment shortages, and fear that their rifles would fail in combat. These letters were not classified. They were private communication. But when concerned family members forwarded them to representatives and senators, private became public. Congressman James J. Howard of New Jersey received letters from constituents with sons in Vietnam. One letter read, "Believe it or not, you know what killed most of us? Our own rifle. Before we left Okinawa, we were all issued the new rifle, the M16. Practically every one of our dead was found with his rifle torn down next to him where he had been trying to fix it." Another described extraction failures. "The cartridge case doesn't eject. The round is stuck in the chamber. You have to push a rod down the barrel to get it out. We don't have rods." Published letters appeared in newspapers. The Philadelphia Inquirer ran accounts from Marines describing rifles jamming during ambushes. The New York Times published excerpts detailing maintenance problems and equipment shortages. Soldier complaints included not only extraction failures, but also magazines that fell out when jarred, selectors that froze in humid conditions, and forward assists that were needed constantly but not present on early models. The letters were detailed and specific. One Marine wrote, "Out of 40 rounds, I got 5 rounds off. I think you can see what happens when you take a brand new rifle, never clean it and use it, but you've got to realize that when they told us to do it, they told us we were going to make contact and we needed every available man. I lost some damned good friends because of the M16. Another described finding comrades dead. Riflemen were killed trying to clear jammed rifles while under fire. The accounts contradicted Defense Department public affairs statements. Official messaging emphasized the M16's effectiveness and suitability for jungle warfare. Briefing slides showed satisfied soldiers with rifles. Press releases highlighted technical advantages. Yet the letters described a different reality. Rifles that jammed routinely, lack of cleaning equipment, inadequate training, and soldiers who had lost confidence in their primary weapon. Members of Congress began asking questions. If the rifle was as effective as claimed, why were Marines and soldiers writing desperate letters home? If malfunctions were rare, why did so many accounts describe the same problems? If cleaning was the issue, why weren't cleaning kits provided? The gap between official narrative and ground truth became impossible to ignore. By March 1967, Congressional offices had received enough letters and complaints to justify investigation. The House Armed Services Committee prepared to examine the M16 program. Meanwhile, procurement continued. Contracts delivered thousands more rifles to Vietnam each month. The supply system had momentum. Stopping or correcting it required more than letters. It required hearings, testimony, and findings that could compel action. In a department of the Army conference room, ordnance officers reviewed briefing materials for congressional inquiries. One chart showed malfunction rates within acceptable ranges. Another attributed field problems to inadequate cleaning discipline and improper maintenance procedures. A third outlined training improvements being implemented. The narrative was consistent. The rifle was sound. Users needed better instruction. This explanation had logic. Rifles required maintenance. Soldiers in combat often lacked time and materials for proper cleaning. If troops did not understand the M16's specific needs, problems would follow. The Army's initial response focused on training and discipline. Technical bulletins went to units emphasizing the importance of daily cleaning. Maintenance publications were revised to provide more detailed instructions. The official position held that the rifle, properly maintained, performed well. Problems occurred when soldiers failed to clean weapons adequately. The solution was better training, clearer instructions, and improved maintenance discipline. Army Materiel Command issued statements emphasizing user responsibility. USARV published guidance on M16 care. Training films showed proper cleaning procedures, but this narrative overlooked systemic issues. Rifles had been fielded without adequate cleaning kits. Many soldiers lacked rods, brushes, and solvent, not due to negligence, but because the supply system had not provided them. Early rifles lacked chrome-plated chambers, not because soldiers failed to request them, but because the Army accepted non-chrome rifles to accelerate production. Ammunition used ball powder, not because troops chose it, but because procurement officials made that decision. Eugene Stoner, the rifle's designer, was not initially consulted about problems. When he eventually learned of field issues, he identified the propellant change as a likely contributor. He had designed the rifle around IMR powder. Ball powder altered the operating system's performance in ways that increased malfunctions. This was a system-level change, not a maintenance failure. Reports from ordnance technicians in Vietnam supported this analysis. One USRV ordnance officer wrote, "The M16 rifle was not adequately developed for combat use. Rifles were fielded without chrome chambers, with inadequate cleaning equipment, and with ammunition not qualified with the weapon system. Reliability problems stem from these decisions, not primarily from user error." The Army did take some corrective action. Cleaning kits began reaching units in larger numbers. By late 1966, comic-style maintenance manuals featuring a character named Chicken Plate were distributed to make instructions more accessible. Technical bulletins addressed specific problems. But these measures were reactive and incremental, not comprehensive. Defining the problem as training and maintenance deflected attention from deeper issues: untested propellant changes, unfinished rifles fielded to meet schedules, incomplete support systems. Soldiers were being told to maintain rifles properly while lacking the tools to do so. Units were being blamed for poor discipline while using ammunition and rifles that had not been fully qualified together. By early 1967, the gap between official explanations and field reality had become politically untenable. Congressional offices were receiving too many letters. The press was asking too many questions. Internal Army reports documented system-level problems that could not be dismissed as user error. The narrative of proper maintenance will solve the issue no longer held. The problem had moved beyond technical and tactical channels. It had become a matter of public accountability. Congress would examine not only the rifle, but also the decisions that led to its troubled fielding. The official explanations would have to withstand scrutiny under oath. An analyst at USARV headquarters reconstructed a small unit engagement from after-action reports and participant interviews. The document showed a rifle squad moving through jungle when ambushed at close range. Initial enemy fire from 3 directions. The squad's response: attempt to return fire immediately and assault through the ambush. Standard doctrine. But of 12 M16s, 5 jammed within the first 30 seconds. The after-action report listed failure to extract as the malfunction for 4 rifles, double feed for the 5th. Doctrine assumed immediate firepower. The first seconds of contact determined outcomes. A squad's survival depended on rapid, violent response to suppress ambushes and create maneuver space. Every rifle was needed immediately. When a third to half of the squad's weapons failed in the opening moments, numerical odds shifted. Tactical initiative, always precarious, became untenable. Soldiers described the sequence: first shot fired, case stuck, attempt to charge the weapon, case remains stuck, look down ejection port, see the rim or case mouth, need a rod not accessible in first contact, packed in rucksack or back at firebase. Attempt to clear manually, not possible. Rifle is now dead weight, soldier is now without his primary weapon while under fire. The malfunction created immediate consequences: fire superiority lost, buddies must cover the soldier with the jammed rifle, fire distribution becomes uneven. The enemy, hearing reduced return fire, presses the attack. Tactical flexibility evaporates. A jammed rifle meant not just one weapon lost, but degraded squad effectiveness across all tactical functions. Some units adapted, soldiers assigned to carry cleaning rods in accessible positions. Standard operating procedures emphasized immediate rod accessibility. Troops trained to clear malfunctions under stress. But these adaptations were reactive. They did not eliminate the underlying mechanical problems. The most devastating reports described soldiers found dead beside disassembled rifles. An investigation team examining a battlefield site documented 3 soldiers killed with rifles torn down, cleaning rods visible in positions suggesting they had been attempting to clear stoppages during contact. One rifle showed a case stuck in the chamber with the rod inserted halfway. The soldier had died trying to clear his weapon. These findings were documented reflected in classified after-action summaries. A Marine Corps report noted the reliability of the M16 rifle under adverse conditions is extremely poor. Marines are often found dead with their rifles disassembled, attempting to clear a malfunction. This situation is intolerable and places unnecessary risk on Marines conducting combat operations. The tactical cost could be measured: reduced firepower in initial contact, longer engagement times, increased casualties, loss of initiative, psychological stress, knowing the rifle might fail at the critical moment, reduced confidence undermining aggressive tactics. Soldiers hesitated to rely on a weapon they did not trust. An Army study attempted to quantify impact, comparing engagement outcomes between units equipped with reliable M16s versus units experiencing high malfunction rates showed measurable differences in casualty ratios and mission success rates. The data suggested that rifle reliability directly affected tactical effectiveness at the squad level, where modern infantry combat is won or lost. By mid-1967, enough tactical evidence had accumulated to make clear that the M16's problems were not merely inconveniences, they were killing American soldiers. Not all casualties could be attributed to rifle malfunctions, but some clearly were. The industrial and procurement decisions made years earlier in Washington offices and ammunition plants were now manifest in jungle firefights as stuck cartridges and silent rifles. When Congress convened its investigation in May 1967, these tactical consequences became central to assessing responsibility. The question was not abstract or bureaucratic, it was immediate and lethal. Had decisions about propellant, chrome plating, and cleaning kits led directly to American deaths? 15 May 1967. House Armed Services Committee, Washington, D.C., Representative Richard Icord of Missouri, called the Special Subcommittee on the M16 rifle program to order. Witness tables faced rows of members and staff. Display boards showed M16 components, ammunition samples, photographs of fouled chambers and damaged cartridges. Press and public filled rear seats. The hearing would run through August, 23 sessions, hundreds of pages of testimony. Defense officials expected to defend the rifle and attribute problems to maintenance and training. The committee's questions suggested otherwise. Why had the propellant been changed from IMR to ball powder without full testing? Why were rifles fielded without chrome-plated chambers? Why were cleaning kits not issued with rifles from the start? Why did soldiers' letters describe problems contradicting official statements? Witnesses included Army project officers, Colt representatives, ammunition engineers, Marine and Army officers from Vietnam, and independent analysts. Each session built a documentary record. The committee entered letters from soldiers, after-action reports, technical test data, production records, and procurement decisions into evidence. The pattern became clear: the rifle as tested was not the rifle as fielded. An Army colonel testified that early production rifles lacked chrome plating to meet delivery schedules. A representative from Olin Matheson explained ball powder production advantages, but acknowledged testing with the M16 had been limited. A Marine major described multiple rifles jamming during combat operations and the improvised measures units developed to cope. Colt engineers testified they had raised concerns about cyclic rate increases with ball powder, but were told the Army accepted the performance. The committee asked direct questions. Had anyone consulted Eugene Stoner about the propellant change? No. Had field testing occurred with ball powder in M16s under tropical conditions before mass production? Limited testing only. Had cleaning kits been included in procurement packages from the beginning? Not consistently. Had anyone predicted the problems now being reported from Vietnam? Some concerns had been raised, but they were not acted upon. Photographs entered into evidence showed the physical reality: chambers pitted and corroded, cartridge rims torn by extractors, carbon fouling coating bolt carriers, stuck cases driven out with improvised rods, rifles disassembled in field conditions. The images documented what words described: a weapon system failing under the conditions it was designed to operate in. Letters read into the record carried emotional weight. A Marine wrote, "Practically every one of our dead was found with his rifle torn down next to him where he had been trying to fix it." Another described watching rifles jam during contact while AK-47s fired reliably. A soldier explained writing to his congressman because official channels produced no response to urgent equipment requests. The hearings exposed not a single failure point, but a chain of decisions. Changing propellant to meet production goals without full qualification testing, accepting rifles without chrome plating to meet delivery schedules, issuing rifles without adequate cleaning kits and training materials to accelerate fielding. Each decision, individually rationalized, combined to create a systemic failure. Icord's questioning focused on accountability. Who decided to change the powder? Who approved fielding non-chrome rifles? Who determined cleaning kits were adequate? The answers revealed diffused responsibility. No single person made the critical decisions. They emerged from the procurement process, with multiple offices approving elements without anyone assessing the integrated system. By August, when testimony concluded, the record filled 2 thick volumes. The committee's preliminary findings were blunt. The M16 rifle, as developed by the Armalite Corporation and initially manufactured by Colt, was an excellent and reliable weapon. Modifications, substitutions, and inadequate support transformed it into a weapon with serious reliability problems. The report assigned responsibility across Army Materiel Command, procurement offices, and oversight functions. The hearings accomplished what internal reports could not. They created a public record, they compelled officials to answer under oath, they documented the gap between what was promised and what was delivered. They made clear that the problems were not user error, but system failure, and they prepared the ground for mandatory corrective action. Summer 1967, the special subcommittee called Eugene Stoner to testify. He brought diagrams of the gas system and ammunition ballistics. Members directed specific questions about design assumptions and propellant types. Stoner's testimony was technically precise and damning in its implications. The rifle, Stoner explained, was designed around IMR extruded powder. The operating system's timing, pressures, and cyclic rate assumed that propellant. Ball powder generated a different pressure curve. Port pressure increased, bolt carrier velocity increased. Cyclic rate rose from 750-850 rounds per minute to 1,000 rounds per minute or higher. This faster cycling stressed the extraction process and increased fouling deposition. Committee members asked if Stoner had been consulted about the powder change. He had not. Did he approve it? No. Would he have recommended it? Not without extensive testing and possible design modifications to compensate for altered ballistics. The testimony established that the designer considered the propellant substitution significant and inadequately evaluated. Other technical witnesses supported Stoner's analysis. An ammunition engineer testified that ball powder's burn characteristics differed measurably from IMR powder. A metallurgist explained how non-chrome chambers increased friction and corrosion susceptibility. An Army Ordnance officer acknowledged that chrome plating had been omitted from early production to meet schedules. Despite known benefits for reliability in harsh environments, the most significant data came from the M16 Rifle Review Panel, established earlier in 1967, to investigate field problems. The panel surveyed 5,200 Army and Marine personnel in Vietnam about rifle performance. The survey results entered the committee record. Key findings: 25% of soldiers and Marines reported experiencing a stoppage in combat that they considered serious, meaning it prevented them from firing when they needed to. The predominant malfunction was failure to extract, accounting for approximately 50% of all stoppages. 80% of personnel reported they did not have adequate cleaning equipment when they first received their rifles. 40% stated they still lacked adequate cleaning materials. The survey also documented reliability differences. Units with chrome-plated rifles and proper cleaning equipment reported malfunction rates comparable to test data. Units with non-chrome rifles, ball powder ammunition, and inadequate cleaning support reported malfunction rates 5 to 10 times higher. The correlation was clear. Brigadier General James Yunt, director of the review panel, testified about the findings. He stated, "The basic M16 rifle is a superior weapon when properly supported. The problems encountered resulted from a combination of factors: propellant substitution, lack of chrome plating, inadequate cleaning equipment, insufficient training, and hasty fielding without full system qualification." The panel's recommendations were comprehensive. Mandate chrome-plated chambers and bores for all rifles. Revise ammunition specifications or modify rifles to ensure reliable operation with ball powder. Provide complete cleaning kits with every rifle. Develop detailed illustrated maintenance instructions. Implement rigorous testing protocols before fielding any weapons system modifications. Establish feedback channels for rapid identification of field problems. The testimony and data transformed the hearing from investigation to indictment. The evidence showed the rifle worked as designed when used with appropriate ammunition and support. It failed when modifications and shortcuts undermined the integrated system. The problems were predictable and preventable. They occurred because institutional processes prioritized schedules and costs over thorough testing and adequate support. Committee members asked why these issues had not been discovered before mass fielding. The answers revealed gaps in the acquisition process. No single authority was responsible for the complete weapon system. Ammunition decisions were made separately from rifle procurement. Training and support were separate programs. Each element met its individual specifications. No one validated that the elements worked together under operational conditions until soldiers carried the rifles in combat. The hearings concluded with clear findings. The M16 program demonstrated serious deficiencies in weapons acquisition, testing, and fielding. Soldiers had been placed at unnecessary risk due to inadequate oversight and premature deployment. Corrective action was mandatory, immediate, and comprehensive. Late 1967. A production line at Colt's facility in Hartford, Connecticut. Workers inspected barrels fresh from chrome plating operations. Each barrel interior gleamed with a thin, hard chrome layer. Chambers received the same treatment. These barrels would go into M16A1 rifles, the corrected standard incorporating congressional recommendations. The Army moved rapidly once the hearings concluded. Technical specifications were revised. All M16 rifles in production and future procurement would have chrome-plated chambers and bores. Chrome reduced friction, resisted corrosion, and facilitated cleaning. It added minimal weight and cost, but dramatically improved reliability in adverse conditions. Additional modifications addressed other identified problems. A forward assist was added, a button on the right side of the receiver, allowing soldiers to manually drive the bolt fully into battery if it failed to close completely. This feature had been omitted from early AR-15 and M16 variants to save weight. Field experience showed its necessity. Marines particularly had requested it. The M16A1 included it as standard. Buffer and spring systems were refined to better control bolt carrier velocity and reduce cyclic rate, partially compensating for ball powder's effects. Improved magazines with redesigned followers, reduced feeding problems. Heavier buffers absorbed more recoil energy, slowing the operating cycle. These changes did not fully reverse the powder substitution's effects, but they mitigated them. Ammunition specifications received attention. The Army directed development of improved ball powder formulations that more closely replicated IMR powder's pressure curve. WC846 was replaced by WC844, which produced lower port pressures and reduced fouling. Later variants continued refinement. The goal was ammunition that maintained production advantages while operating reliably in the rifle as built. Cleaning kits became mandatory issue items. Every rifle shipped with a complete kit: cleaning rod with handle, chamber brush, bore brush, multiple sections for rod extension, and proper solvent. Units in Vietnam received massive shipments of cleaning equipment to replace earlier shortages. Supply officers prioritized cleaning materials alongside ammunition and rations. Training materials were completely overhauled. The Army developed illustrated technical manuals specific to the M16A1. Comic-style publications, particularly the M16A1 Rifle Operation and Preventive Maintenance, distributed through PS Magazine, made maintenance procedures clear and accessible. Training films showed step-by-step cleaning and common malfunction clearing. Recruits received extensive familiarization before deploying. Distribution to Vietnam began in early 1968. New rifles went to arriving units. Rifles in theater returned to depots for retrofitting where possible. Barrels replaced with chrome-lined versions, forward assists added, buffers upgraded. The process took months. Priority went to infantry units in heavy contact. By mid-1968, most M16s in Vietnam were A1 standard or retrofitted. Reports from the field reflected the changes. Malfunction rates dropped measurably. Surveys showed increased confidence in the rifle. After-action reports mentioned stoppages less frequently. Units reported that with proper maintenance, which was now possible with adequate equipment, the M16A1 performed reliably even in extended operations. The Blue Ribbon Defense Panel, established by President Nixon in 1969, later assessed the corrected M16 program. The panel concluded, "The M16A1, properly maintained, is an effective and reliable rifle. It provides U.S. forces with superior firepower compared to previous rifles." The panel estimates that the M16's lighter weight, greater ammunition load, and controllability have saved thousands of American lives compared to continuing with 7.62 mm rifles. The fixes worked. The M16A1 became the standard U.S. rifle for 3 decades. It served in every subsequent conflict. Reliability in desert, Arctic, and jungle conditions proved acceptable when the complete system, rifle, ammunition, maintenance, training, was properly integrated. The weapon's reputation recovered among troops who used the corrected version, but the recovery came after the damage. Early users remembered jammed rifles and dead comrades. The M16's introduction remained controversial among veterans who served in 1965-1967. The corrected rifle could not undo the failures of the original fielding. It could only ensure those failures did not continue. The M16 program became a case study. It appeared in acquisition courses, weapons development doctrine, and congressional oversight training. The lessons: test the complete system, not just components, maintain design integrity through production, provide adequate support from the start, listen to frontline feedback immediately. The corrected M16A1 validated those lessons. The original M16 had taught them in blood. 1968, 1970, Vietnam, analysts in Saigon compiled new survey data on M16A1 performance. The methodology mirrored earlier assessments, allowing direct comparison. Results showed clear improvement. Soldiers rating the rifle as reliable or very reliable increased from approximately 58% in 1967 surveys to 85% in 1969-1970 surveys. The proportion reporting serious stoppages in combat dropped from 25% to under 8%. After-action reports reflected the change. Battalion operations officers noted fewer rifle malfunctions in summaries. Company commanders reported that weapon stoppages no longer significantly affected unit effectiveness. Soldiers interviewed during unit rotations expressed confidence in the M16A1 that contrasted sharply with earlier complaints. The improvements correlated directly with the corrections implemented. Units equipped with chrome-bore M16A1s, using improved ammunition with complete cleaning kits and proper training, experienced reliability comparable to design specifications. The rifle functioned as Stoner had intended when supported by an integrated system. Statistical analysis confirmed the pattern. A Department of the Army study compared engagement outcomes before and after the corrections. Casualty rates in rifle companies showed measurable reduction. The study cautiously concluded that improved rifle reliability contributed to enhanced tactical effectiveness, though multiple factors influenced combat outcomes. The Blue Ribbon Defense Panel examined the M16 program as part of its broader assessment of defense acquisition. Its 1970 report stated, "The M16 rifle, in its corrected M16A1 configuration, is a significant advance in infantry weapons. Its lightweight allows soldiers to carry more ammunition. Its controllability enables effective automatic fire. Its 5.56 cm cartridge is adequately lethal at combat ranges." The panel estimates that compared to continuing with the M14, the M16A1 has likely saved many thousands of American lives through superior firepower and reduced soldier fatigue. This assessment created a paradox. The same rifle family that had been investigated by Congress for endangering soldiers was now credited with saving lives. The difference lay entirely in system integration, chrome plating, proper ammunition, adequate maintenance support, and comprehensive training. The hardware was nearly identical. The support system was transformed. Veterans' perspectives remained mixed. Soldiers who served in 1965 to 1967 often retained negative views based on personal experience with early rifles. Those who served after 1968 generally considered the M16A1 effective. The rifle's reputation among Vietnam veterans thus depended significantly on when they served and which version they carried. The improved performance validated the corrective measures. It also validated the criticisms raised during the investigation. The rifle had not been fundamentally flawed, the fielding had been. The problems were real but solvable through proper system development and support. The tragedy was that the solutions came after, not before. Mass deployment, 1970s to present, U.S. military education institutions, a classroom at Fort Lee or Fort Benning, an instructor projects a timeline, M16 development, testing, fielding, failure, investigation, correction. The case study is titled M16 Program, Lessons in Systems Acquisition. The lessons are structural. First, test the complete system, not components in isolation. The M16 was tested with IMR powder. It was fielded with ball powder. These were not the same weapon system. Testing should have occurred with the ammunition soldiers would actually use, under the conditions they would actually face, for the durations they would actually endure. Second, maintain design integrity through production. When specifications change, propellant type, chamber plating, buffer characteristics, The changes must be evaluated as if introducing a new weapon. The assumption that meeting individual specifications ensures system performance proved false. Interactions between components matter as much as component quality. Third, provide complete support from the start. Rifles without cleaning kits are incomplete weapons systems. Training without proper instruction materials is inadequate preparation. Fielding schedules must account for support requirements, not just hardware delivery. The M16 reached Vietnam before its logistical tail was in place. Fourth, establish rapid feedback channels. Soldiers in 1965, 1966 reported problems immediately. Those reports circulated slowly through channels, filtered and delayed. By the time serious action occurred, thousands of soldiers had experienced failures. Modern acquisition doctrine emphasizes direct feedback mechanisms and rapid response protocols. Fifth, beware of overconfidence in technology. The M16 represented advanced design that did not make it immune to basic failure modes like corrosion and fouling. Advanced weapons still require maintenance, support, and realistic testing. Marketing language about self-cleaning rifles contributed to inadequate maintenance emphasis. The ICORD Committee's final report, submitted October 1967, concluded, the failure to provide the necessary tools and equipment, coupled with inadequate training and improper ammunition, resulted in a weapon with serious reliability problems. The responsibility for this failure must rest with the Department of the Army and its various agencies charged with the development, production, and fielding of this weapon system. That conclusion became doctrine. It shaped subsequent acquisition regulations. It influenced how the Army approached future rifle programs. The M4, for instance, underwent extensive testing with multiple ammunition types before mass fielding. It established congressional oversight mechanisms for major weapons systems. The M16 story demonstrates how technical decisions translate into human consequences. Propellant type seems abstract until it becomes stuck cartridges during ambush. Chrome plating seems minor until it becomes corroded chambers and extraction failures. Cleaning kits seem trivial until rifles jam because soldiers lack tools to maintain them. The case also shows that recognition and correction are possible. The M16A1 became a successful rifle. The same basic design served for decades because the system, not just the hardware, was fixed. The Army learned, Congress learned, and the acquisition process improved. Those lessons came at a price measured in battlefield casualties and damaged trust. The final line in the case study materials reads, the M16 program demonstrates that weapons do not succeed or fail in isolation. They succeed or fail as part of documented chains of decisions in design, production, logistics, and training. The rifle that jammed in 1966 and the rifle that performed well in 1970 were nearly identical. What changed was everything around it. Today, the M16 family remains in service, evolved into the M4 carbine, but fundamentally the same operating system Stoner designed in the 1950s. Its longevity validates the original concept. Its troubled introduction validates the importance of system integration, realistic testing, and adequate support. Both truths are part of the same story, a promising rifle nearly destroyed by overconfident implementation, salvaged by recognition of failure and commitment to correction. The lessons remain relevant. Every new rifle program references the M16 case. Every acquisition officer studies it. The congressional hearings, Stoner's testimony, the survey data, the after-action reports, all remain in the record, teaching what happens when technology outpaces support, when schedules override testing, when feedback is delayed, and when overconfidence replaces verification. The M16's story is not unique in military history. Many weapons systems have suffered troubled introductions. What makes the M16 case significant is the documentation. Congress investigated, witnesses testified, surveys measured performance. The chain of decisions and consequences was recorded in detail. That record ensures the lessons endure beyond the individuals who learned them first. In a quiet way, the corrected M16A1 is a memorial. It embodies recognition that the early problems were real, that they mattered, that they killed soldiers, and that the institution accepted responsibility to fix them. The rifle works now because the system was rebuilt around it. That rebuilding, chrome-lined chambers, proper ammunition, cleaning kits, training, feedback, represents the lessons applied. The story ends not with triumph or tragedy, but with sober recognition. Systems matter, testing matters, support matters, and overconfidence kills. The M16 taught those lessons. The corrected M16A1 proved they could be learned. Whether future programs remember them remains an ongoing question.